welcome to the Miss Leela Podcast, episode 4. My name is Miss Leela and I'm coming to you from the Blue Mountains, where I live with my husband and my almost 2-year-old daughter Tilly, our cat Tink and our dog Indy. This is take 2. I started this podcast a couple of minutes ago in another location in my studio, and the light was just washing everything out and it was really glary. So I've moved back to, this is where my computer desk in my studio. So behind me up here you can see these are all my scrap boxes, and there's also some project boxes. These are all like behind me are all my paper piecing boxes and my cotton reels and all that sort of thing. And up here, these are the stairs that go up to our living area. And behind me on my table, where you can see a mound of stuff, I've been over the last month doing a de-stash, and I've been going through not just my fabric and my yarn, but all of my craft paraphernalia that I have accumulated over the years, and I have just done a massive de-stash because I'm just never going to use it. And so I've packaged it all up, price tagged it all, and in a couple of weeks I'm going to have a open studio day and de-stash sale. So that's why there's all that stuff behind me. That's not normally there. Normally it's very neat and tidy. I'll go through phases of being neat and tidy. When I'm working on a project or a market, then it's not so neat and tidy. So yeah, I'm a bit... I wasn't sure if I should have podcasted today or not, because I've been a bit unwell this week, and I think I'm feeling a bit flat still from that. And yeah, I think my energy levels haven't quite come back to where they usually are, but today is really the only day this weekend that I can do it, and I really wanted to get a podcast out because it's been a little while since my last episode, and I've got a few things to show you, not too much because the projects I've been working on are quite labour intensive ones. So hopefully it will be a bit of a shorter episode than usual. Still trying to get it down in time a bit. So let's jump in. Just gonna see if this has cooled down a bit now. I've got a big cup of tea to keep me company in this new ceramic style mug, which I picked up from Target from about $2 or something. And it's huge. It's really heavy too. It's a lot of tea in it. I've got just Earl Grey today. Yeah, that's good. It is the 2nd of March today, second day of autumn for us, and it's supposed to be, according to my weather app, 27 today, but it doesn't really feel like that, and it's quite overcast today. We've had a massive downpour last weekend, I think it was. We had really good rain on the Sunday and Monday, really good rain. We really needed it, and it was amazing. I was driving to work, and I drive through a little bit of countryside to work out on the plains, and it was amazing, just just one, like 24 hours of constant rain. The flush of green in all the paddocks was just, it was just amazing, like how it just so quickly the grass can rejuvenate and pop back up, and all these dry, barren kind of paddocks just had all this beautiful flush of green. So yeah, that was really good. It was really good to get a good soak in, and I think we're in for some more rain on Sunday and possibly tomorrow as well. So which is great. The garden really needs it. Our grass really needs it. Grass has gone a bit, suffered a bit in the summer heat, and the cooler weather is great. It makes it a lot easier to get out into the garden and do some work. In summer I find it, I don't really get much opportunity to get out into the garden because, you know, I'm not going to garden and landscaping 35 to 40 degree heat, which pretty much in February the temperature hasn't dipped below 30, so it's just been too hot and the gardening work that I've got to do is mostly in the backyard, and it's clearing all of the weeds and the rubbish and actually redefining the garden beds with stone, sort of small stone retaining walls and that sort of thing. So it's quite labour intensive, so it's not something I can do in that kind of heat. A little bit of weeding here and there in that sort of weather is okay, but not the work that I've got to do. So last Sunday before the rain set in, I managed to get out there and do a fair bit, and Tim got out there and did a fair bit of clearing as well, which was really good. And so I'm really looking forward to autumn and hopefully some milder weather to get out into the garden. Especially the front yard needs weeding, and I'd really like to plant some spring bulbs this year in the front yard, so I really need to get out there and weed and mulch and get the soil ready for that. So I am personally happy to see the end of summer. I used to be a summer girl, but I've definitely turned into more of an autumn spring person, and I'm just can't wait for winter and autumn, to be honest, and to get rugged up in blankets and wear my boots and that sort of thing. Summer's great, but I get to the end of it and I'm just so over it now. I used to love it, but now I'm just so over it. Okay, so enough jibber jabber. Let's get into some craft. So my best friend is expecting her first baby in April, and so I've been making a couple of things for her. I don't think she watches the podcast, so I feel like it's pretty safe, and some of these, or two of these things, I'll be giving to her at the baby shower on Sunday anyway, and this podcast always takes 24 hours to load, so I'm pretty sure she won't have time to watch it before I give her the present. So this is the first thing I've made. Oh, this colour, it's showing so much better now that I've moved from where I started podcasting. So I've made a little bunny buddy, a little tail. So I made one for Tilly when she was born, and I find these are great for little babies because they've got really thin and long arms and legs, and even the ears. So they're really good for little hands to learn to hold on to and grasp, and Tilly used to love holding on to her bunny buddy. They've got quite a floppy head, but that's sort of intentional. With Tilly's I use safety eyes, but lately when I've been making these I've just been embroidering sleepy eyes on. It just means that there's no plastic hard parts for little babies to chew or like anything like that, so I think they're much sweeter with their little sleepy eyes. So I didn't keep the ball band, so I can't tell you what the yarn is, but I held a 4-ply baby yarn and an 8-ply acrylic together. I really wanted the 4-ply is quite similar to this Patterns one, which I'm using in something else, and it's got like, it's a variegated colourway with like a lemon yellow, a pale aqua, and a sort of ivory white. So I had another ball by another brand, but it was pretty much identical to this. So I held that with an 8-ply acrylic yarn in a soft creamy yellow colour, just something that I had left over, just to give it more body, and so it made a larger bunny, because if I had just made it out of the 4-ply baby yarn it would have been half the size and too little. But I wanted to use the variegated colours, so he's really cute. The pattern for this is by Crochet Object, and I will link to that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, which will be on my blog. That is very sweet. I've made quite a few of these now. I've sold a lot of them at markets and through my shop. It's very cute. So the other thing that I've got for my best friend is, I didn't make it, but I contributed to it in another way. So it's this matinee jacket, crocheted. Colour is showing, it's even showing green a lot better in this position, which is nice. So my mum made this for me. I asked her if she could make it because I knew I wouldn't have time and I wouldn't get it done. But I dyed the yarn. So the yarn for this I dyed in, I think it was only my third experiment with dyeing yarn. And it still is looking quite blue, but it's actually quite a mint green colour. It's just showing a lot very blue. And it does have some darker blue aqua speckling, and there's also little hints of like a lime greeny yellow speckle. And then there are sections or like areas of sort of undyed yarn coming through. So I was really happy with the dyeing of this yarn. It came out really well. I didn't write down how I did it. Kind of wish I had paid attention. On that day I was writing down some other experiments that I was doing and what I did, but for this one for some reason I just didn't. So hopefully I'll be able to it took me a little bit of to-ing and fro-ing with the dye and levels of water to get the right mint colour that I was after, but I'm really happy with the end product. So, and yeah, it's just very sweet. So my mum made that, but I dyed it. So that's, and the reason I've picked these colours is because these are the colours that she doesn't know what she's having. So these are the colours that she's going with for the nursery. So minty greens, aquary blues, and like the lemon yellows. And I think she's also pairing that with like grey and white. So I've got that. And then this is one of my works in progress. Although I might follow suit with, who was I watching? I can't remember now. I was watching one of the podcasts that I watch, and they have decided to stop calling them whips and works in progress, because that implies that, you know, it's work, it's like a job, you've got to get it done kind of thing. And they have now decided to call them makes in progress, and I like that a lot better too. So I'm going to start calling them makes in progress. I think I was watching Crafternoon Treats, and I can't remember her name, and she was watching Stitching the High Notes, and I can't remember her name either. And it was Stitching the High Notes who decided that she was going to start calling them makes in progress. So this is my first make in progress, and this is also for my best friend. So I'm making a crochet ripple, now that's showing quite true, the green, a ripple, just a pram blanket. So this is how far I've got. So I've got a fair bit to go, but she's not due until April the 25th. So I've still got pretty much 2 months to get this done in time. So I'm pretty sure I'll have it done for when the baby comes, but it won't be part of the actual baby shower present. So yeah, I'm just about to change back to the variegated yarn after doing this band of the minty green. So the yarn I'm using is the Patterns Big Baby 4-ply. That colour's showing quite well. And the colour is 3911. And I didn't bring the ball band down with me, but I'll put it in the show notes. This is the green that I'm putting with it. And it's a mint green, but it's a bit of it's like a dulled down mint green, if that makes sense. It's not like a bright turquoisey mint. It's quite a nice mint colour. Yeah. So, and it's lovely and soft, obviously, because it's the baby yarn. So, yeah. I figure if I do at least one, preferably 2 rows per day from now on, it should grow to the length that I want it. It's obvious it's only a pram blanket, so it doesn't have to be massive. Obviously you can see it's not overly wide, but because it's just to use sort of as a pram blanket, or you could even use it sort of as a burping kind of cloth kind of thing, or a bit of a modesty blanket when she's feeding, that kind of thing. So I've got to get back into doing that one. Just going to have some more of my tea. Alright, so I'll go on to some sewing. So I have an almost finished object. I was really hoping I would get it done in time for the podcast, but being a bit unwell this week, I didn't work much on anything really, so I haven't quite got it finished. But if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen this, and I think I have shown on the podcast before. So it is my Hexagon flower mini quilt. So as you can see, I have finished piecing it. So it consists of the center hexagon, and then red, yellow, green, blue, purple and pink, and then in the corners I just did diamonds in the same sort of creamy neutral colours. So this is made piecing 1/4 inch I can't see, so I hope you can. 1/4 inch hexagons using the English paper piecing method. And I'm now up to quilting. So, sorry, I've got fluff on my lip. So when it comes to my mini quilts, I don't always quilt them. If it is just one of my hexie hearts that I put in the embroidery frames, I do not quilt them at all. I just applique the heart onto the backing fabric and that's it. Same with if I'm going to frame it in a frame, like you can see behind me there. That is a 1/4 inch flower design, which I call Garden of Patience. That's the first one I ever did. And that's in a frame, so that hasn't been quilted. It is just appliqued onto a piece of backing cloth so that I can then wrap the backing cloth over the sort of backing board of the frame and then frame it. So I only quilt them if they're not going in an embroidery hoop or they're not going in a frame. And even then the quilting is very minimal. So I am quilting, I've only done one side, but I'm quilting, and you won't even be able to see this probably. I'm quilting, I'm following like the line or the edges of the hexagon, so I'm going to quilt all the way around each side, really close to the hexagon. And then the only other, it might be easy if I show it on the back, so you can see I'm also just quilting are around the shape of each petal, but the stitches are larger on the back. I'm going to do a full blog post on this, so I'll have better pictures. So you can see the stitches are quite large on the back, because on the front, literally, I have just come up in each corner, come up and done a really tiny little, almost like invisible stitch, and gone back down. And that's all the quilt, and that's just really to secure this front piece to the backing fabric and through the quilt. It's not really to create any kind of quilt. I don't want any kind of quilting design on this, because I think it takes away from, you know, the fact of all these little hexagons all sewn together. To do big quilting over the top, I think it would just look wrong, and the scale and proportion would look totally out of it. So yeah, very just minimal quilting. And then the silly thing I forgot to do is, normally I would, the way that I hang these in the past has been, I've done a sleeve on the back and I put a small dowel rod through, and then I just have a hanging thing. But I forgot to sew on the sleeve on this one. So I think what I'll do is I'll just hand stitch on a couple of fabric loops, and I'll feed the rod through that way with this one. But yeah, really, really pleased with this. Loving how it's turned out. I started making these hexagon patches years and years ago, and it was just one of those things that I put in my box of, you know, progress makes, and forgot about them. And this year I really want to try and get back into some of my projects that I started eons ago and actually get them finished. So I'll be really happy when this one's finished, because then I can tick that off my list. So yeah, that's that one. So that will be finished. I'm hoping I'll get I'll finish quilting it this weekend, and then I'll just have to put the binding on it and then sew the loops on the back, and then it will be done. But I'm going to do a whole blog post on that one with lots of detailed photos and that sort of thing. So stay tuned for that. The other thing I'm hoping to do soon, I was going to try and do it last weekend, and that didn't happen. I don't know that I'll have time to do it this weekend, but on Instagram I've had quite a few people asking about how I tack the 1/4 inch hexies and how I go about sewing them together. So I am going to film a tutorial for that. I just need to find the time to sit down and work out how I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to have to do it on my phone with the mini tripod that I've got, and somehow try and do it that way, because I don't think I'll be able to use my webcam to do that tutorial. It needs to be more of a camera looking down onto me sewing. So I just have to work out the logistics of that and find a bit of time, uninterrupted time, to film that for you. But I am planning on doing that, and I will eventually do tutorials for all the miniature paper piecing shapes that I supply in my shop as well. So that is my goal this year, to get a tutorial for all of them done. Have some of my tea. It's the perfect temperature now, so I'm going to drink it. Okay. So I just have one more make in progress to show you. I have shared this on my Instagram, so you may have seen it already. It's another project that I started. Well, let's see. The fabrics that I'm using are the leftover fabrics for a quilt that I made for our cousin's daughter, and she is now, she's 6 or she's 7. She's in her second year in first grade at school, so she just had her birthday. I think she's 6. So I started this 6 years ago. It's a short story. So it's a pattern that I designed, and sorry for the scribbles, but because I've actually been crossing out the hexagons as I go, which I find really helpful when I'm doing a actually like designed pattern. So, and this shows it as just 3 colours, which I'm sort of changing. So the pattern as it is here is not really going to be exactly how it looks. It's going to be similar, but not exactly. So it's called the Flowers Floor Rug, but I've started calling it floor mat instead, but it doesn't really matter. But so I'm not sure how many hexagons there are because I didn't finish my tally down here. But it's using 1-inch hexagons, and this is, I'm just going to find which way up it goes. This is the way up it goes. This is how much I've done so far. Can't tell if it's focusing or not. So this has been really fun to work on. So I'm kind of, I've got quite a lot of the hexagons ready to go. I love using these compartment type of containers to store them all in. So I've got them all ready to go. I've got more hexagons ready to cover, cut out, ready to cover, and then if I need it, I've still got more of the fabric. So this was a jelly roll, and it was a motor. It's a motor fabric, and I don't know what the collection was called now. Can't remember. But it's got puppy dogs on it, and then it's got like girls in like on scooters, and then it's got some like plain geometrics in the range. So like it's quite old, so I'm not sure you'd be able to get it anymore anyway. And then when I was making the quilt, I paired it with just some plain grey, and I used this pink spot fabric as well. So the idea is that I've started with the white fabrics and the palest of the pink fabrics, as well as one of the simple greys for this centre area, the very centre. And then as I continue out, the pinks start to get a bit stronger, and also the white pieces get a bit like stronger as well, not as white, and eventually it'll bleed out into the blues, and then that will bleed out into using the reds, the red colours. So this is like one of the stronger pinks, so kind of like a fade, I suppose. But it's going to be a bit of a trial and error too, because I don't know how, like, I might not have enough of each print done up to do a complete round, so I'm going to have to kind of mix them up a bit. So it's a bit of a, there's no real, like, there's a pattern, but there's no real specific way of, I haven't worked out exactly what fabric is going to be which flower and that sort of thing. So it's, but that's fun. It's all part of playing around with it, and yeah, it's been nice working on a larger shape, going from doing the 1/4-inch hexies to working on the larger ones, and it's grown quite quickly so far. So I haven't worked on it very much yet, but so yeah. So I've decided that this will be a year-long project, so I'm working a bit on, well, depends if I really get into it, then I'll keep going, but my plan is to get it finished for Tilly for a Christmas present. So I've got all year to go, so don't have to rush with it, but sometimes when I get really into a project, that's all I work on. I can be quite monogamous with my sewing projects. So that's that one. So that's really all the makes that I have. That's all I've been working on this past month. The hexagon flower took a lot of time. I haven't counted the hours yet. I have counted the hexagons that are in it. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't have my notebook with me, but that will all be in the blog post that I do. Excuse me, I almost just choked on my tea. Okay. Oh, I have one last thing to show you. I didn't make it. My mum did, and it didn't fit her properly, so she gave it to me, and that's the crochet, I'm going to call it kimono, that I'm wearing. So I might stand up. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. So this is it. So it's just got this simple design up the top, and then it's got this kind of leaf-like pattern. So I don't know what the pattern is, or it's a cotton. I know it's a cotton. I think it's a cotton 4-ply, or it could be an 8-ply. I can never tell the difference, to be honest. Isn't it lovely? I feel so lucky that it didn't fit my mum. It is a little, I mean, it's quite an oversized design, so it is quite large on me, but I really like it. I think it's really nice. So I will find out what the pattern is and what yarn she used. Hopefully she remembers, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. So, okay, that's all the makes that I have. Just a bit of chit chat. Last weekend we went to, we had a lovely day out. I went with Tilly and my parents, and we went to Hexagon to the Southern Highlands Quilters Guild, their biennial show. It was quite a large show. The only problem was that the aisles were, because they had so many quilts to fit into the space, the aisles were quite narrow, and it was really busy. We went on the Saturday, and it was really busy, and unfortunately Tilly decided to be quite clingy, and she did not want to be out of my arms, so I had to carry her through the entire show. She wouldn't even go to Grandad. She'd just cry and cry and cry, so I just carried her. But because there were so many women, you know, jostling to look at the quilts and stuff, it was the aisles weren't quite wide enough, and it was a bit hard. To be honest, I was a bit underwhelmed with the quilts that were on display. I couldn't really take any photos because I had a toddler in my arms, but there were many quilts that I would have wanted to take a photo of anyway. There were a couple of standout quilts for me. There was a really lovely hexagon pieced quilt. But yeah, to be honest, it just wasn't stellar. It wasn't great. There were a lot of stall holders there, a lot of patchwork stalls and that sort of thing, but again, I had Tilly, I was carrying Tilly, and obviously I've been going through a big de-stash, so I didn't really intend on buying anything, and I was very good, and I did not buy a single piece of fabric. The Wool Inn, which is a local wool shop to us down in Penrith, they were there as well, and I was even really good, and I didn't even buy any yarn. So, but yeah, it was nice to have a look at the quilts. And from there we went on to Bowral, and we went to a lovely little tea salon inside this ginormous antique shop, and I could spend like a day in this, like this, where this antique shop is. There's also this outdoor sort of courtyard area, and there's a couple of cafes, and there's a restaurant, and there's a nursery as well, which we went in to have a look at, and there's also a homewares shop. And I've actually written a blog post all about our little day trip, and I've put links to a lot of the shops that we saw. But I mean, I could spend like a day there just wandering around. It was so lovely. I had some beautiful lavender scones with lemon curd and cream, which is unfortunately why I have been ill this week, because cream is a big no-no for me, but I indulged and paid for it later. So, but yeah, it was really lovely, and actually Tilly was quite good. She was quite well behaved while we had tea. She just played with my phone and listened to music, and then the only way I was able to like look through the antique shop was to give her my phone with nursery rhyme cartoons playing on YouTube, so that she would just chill out so that Mummy could look at the shops. So she was very well behaved. But yeah, we had a lovely day out. I did buy a couple of little things from the antique shop. I bought a couple of little indoor plants from the nursery, but I put a photo of them on the blog post that I did, so head on over to the blog and you can, there's pictures of our day trip there, so the ones that I was able to take. And then I found some pictures online as well that I put links to as well. So that was lovely. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So I thought I'd just talk a bit about, I decided to start a bullet journal, kind of on the whim. I wasn't intending to do one this year, but I was watching Sandra of the Cherry Heart podcast, and also Betsy Makes podcast. Oh my god, her name has just totally evaded me. Sam from Betsy Makes podcast, and also on Sandra's blog, she has blogged a bit about her bullet journal. And so I thought, looks like an interesting way to record things that happen throughout the year. What I've been doing is, in my planner diary, every day I write down all the things that I do, whether it's, obviously I work, and then it'll be, what cleaning I've done around the house, if I cooked dinner, what sewing I've done and how long I did it for, what crochet I worked on, if I worked on any business admin stuff for Miss Leela, I write it all down, I put all the hours down, and then I colour code things, and at the end of the month or the end of the week I'd sort of tally up how many things I did for Miss Leela, how many making things that I did. I call them sort of tasks. And I'd been doing that, and I thought I could then transfer that into my bullet journal and sort of thing. So I decided to start one. So I thought I'd just share quickly with you what my bullet journal is. So I already had this notebook which has the dotted, probably you're not going to see that, you can just see little dotted sort of lines. So this is my title page, and every time I bullet journal I'd add a little doodle. It sounds terrible, a little doodle. Anyway, so then I've got a page for books I've read, and because this year I'm trying to read one book per month because I've got so many unread books. So then I've got my January task tracker, and I'm going to do this for every month. So I list my tasks down the side, and then I break it into 1, 2, 3, and 4 / the week. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 / 5. And then I put a little dot for that week, how many tasks I completed for each item. and then at the end of the year I can tally up, and then at the end of the month I write down the number so I count up all these dots and I add up the number, and then at the end of the year I can add up each month's one, and I'll be really curious to see what wins out. I'm pretty sure making and home, which is home is any cleaning, cooking, dinner jobs that I do, pretty sure they're going to come out on top. So then I've got a page for makes for me. So I write the item or the pattern, the designer, when I start the project, when I finish it, and how many hours, and then I've got a line for any thoughts or details. So I'd write down, you know, like if it was a crochet thing, I'd write down what yarn I used and any little notes that I had, any pattern changes or modifications that I would make. So I've got a page for me, page for Tilly, makes for Tilly, makes for home, and makes for gifts. And then I've got a page for walking and hiking tracker. So as part of my more mindful living and in order to get fit, I've started going on a walk every Friday morning. I didn't go this morning though because I've been unwell, so I didn't really feel up to it this morning. But I get up before Tilly wakes up and before my husband has to leave to go to work, and I go for a walk in the morning. And I've decided I've never really been a walker, never really enjoyed it, but I am getting into it. It is a nice way to start. My weekend sort of starts on the Friday because I don't work Friday. So it is a nice way to start off the weekend. And I thought I'd start walking because I really want to get back into hiking or bushwalking. And if I'm going to do that in the mountains, obviously it's mountains, there's a lot of steps within a lot of the tracks. There's a lot of up and down hill. So I really need to get my fitness levels up before I really start tackling any of the big walks in the mountains. So then I've also got sewing time tracker and a crochet time tracker. I've got my crochet make 9 list, and then I've got my word for this year, as I talked about in previous podcasts, is discovery. So I've got all the things relating to that I want to discover this year. And then I've got my mindful living page as well, with all the things that I'd like to sort of try and focus on. And then this is my March tracker, which I need to start filling in week 1. Then I've got a page for adventures, explorations and day trips. So it's just where I write a little blurb about when we go for a drive up the mountain, or like the day trip that we took last week. Just some little notes and the date. Getaways and holidays, so same thing. And then I haven't put anything on these ones, but I've got a page for garden tasks completed, and also home renos and decorating completed. So I've got like in my other diary, I've got where I keep my to-do lists. I have like my to-do list for what I want to get done in the garden this year and what I want to get done around the house. So once I've completed one of those tasks, then I will sort of write about it in my bullet journal and make note that yes, I've done that one. Then I've got Tilly's Make 9 list. I've got a page for things I'm grateful for. New crafts I've tried, so I can write about them there. And then I've got a page for Tilly's milestones, and look how many she's already completed this year. She just blows my mind. She can now count to 10, and she can also say and read the entire alphabet except for G, J and W. She can't quite say them yet. She can point to them. If you ask her where G is, she'll point to it, but she can't say. She's starting to try and say G and J, She can't quite get her mouth around it. And W, she just skips past it and goes straight to X. But yeah, and then the other day last week, she recited the alphabet to me. I didn't help her at all. I just kept saying, what's next after each letter, and she recited the entire alphabet, and I was just blown away. So they're all the pages that I've got in my journal so far. So I've been looking online at ideas for pages, and I'm sure I'll have other ideas as well. But I've been really enjoying the bullet journaling. I think it'll be a really fun way to keep track of things that I do this year, and it'd be a nice way to reflect at the end of the year about, you know, what I spent most of my time on, and look back at what trips we took and things that Tilly learnt and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been really fun. And the other thing that I've been doing is, so I'm just going to have some more tea because my throat's getting dry now. Is I received my list journal that I ordered from Breathe magazine, and so every week I've just been filling a little bit of that out. It's really quite lovely. There's some lovely illustrations in there, and different things. Some of the lists or questions in there have been really easy for me to fill out, but other things I've sort of skipped over, and I've thought I'm going to have to go back and think really hard about that. Like this one, for example, my best day. There's the two that spring to mind straight off the bat would be our wedding day and the day that Tilly was born. But I don't know if they're talking about that or just, do you just pick a normal everyday day? I just don't know. So that's one of the things that I'm like, I'm going to come back to that one. Not too sure what I'm going to write about there. Things like there's this page here, my dream home. I'll probably need about 3 pages to fill that particular one out. So there's some questions here I'm like there's my funniest moment. I personally could not think of one. My most embarrassing moment. Well, in my 20s there'd be quite a few. All of them involving alcohol. But let's not talk about that. But yeah, it's really quite interesting. There's some really cool questions in here, some that really make you think. So yeah, I've just been doing a little bit of that each week. So I'll just check my notes. So I haven't got too much left to go through. Just a bit of chit chat of what's been going on behind the scenes with Miss Leela. I haven't really been working on any new items for the shop. I am planning, when I can find a spare weekend, to restock the papers. I've got, I'd really like to include some new shapes with the paper piecing, so have a look out for some new shapes and packets that will be going up in the shop. This year I'm focusing more on developing some patterns, so I'd really like to start getting some patterns out there and potentially kits as well. So actual makes for the shop will be taking a bit of a back seat, and I'll be focusing more on pattern development. And I'm also focusing more on my styling side of the Miss Leela business, so getting my portfolio up and running for that. So sorry, I'm playing with fluff. Actual making, like handmade items, there won't be as many, and I won't be focusing on that as much, just because I've got other things going on. And the other thing that I've been focusing a lot on with Miss Leela is I'm currently rebranding everything. So I'm getting new logos done, and yeah, the Facebook page, my Instagram page, my Etsy shop will all have an overhaul, and yeah, which I'm really excited about. I've really spent a lot of time thinking about the Miss Leela brand and the Miss Leela style and what I really love. And yeah, I've decided to make it all about really what I love, and the kind of the fabrics that I will be using going forth will be the fabrics that I really like, and I'm not going to try and people please anymore. That may sound horrible, but yeah, it'll be focusing more on the colour palette that I really like and that I enjoy using, because I kind of feel like if you're making, you've got to make for the enjoyment of it, and it can't just be to please what you think other people will like. So I'll be focusing more on that, and certainly with the yarn and fabric dyeing, I would definitely be focusing on the kind of colours and the tones of colours that I really like and enjoy, and that fit in with that Miss Leela style and what Miss Leela is. So yeah, I've been working on that behind the scenes, so that's why not a lot of making for the shop will be going on, because I'll be focusing on that and developing my brand a lot more over the course of the year. And then I just want to chat about the blog. So as I mentioned, I think in my last podcast, I was starting a blog, and so far I've been really enjoying blogging. I think I mentioned I wasn't sure how I'd go, because this is my third attempt at doing a blog, but I've been really enjoying it. I've been trying to do I won't do like a weekly blog post, because like I don't have that much time to get that sort of thing done, but I am trying for one at least a fortnight, and so that's not going too bad. And as I mentioned, now the show notes will be now on the blog. Sorry, Tink's trying to jump up. Say hi, Tink. Hello. She should really be outside today, but anyway, she's inside. So I think that's everything today. Under an hour, so that's positive. It's still been quite long, but I do like to chat. I'm always nervous at the start, but then I settle in and just words run away with me. Yeah, right. It's been lovely to catch up with you today. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and joining me. And if you're just discovering this podcast, thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you feel like doing that. And yeah, oh, sorry, one last thing that I do quickly want to mention is I am planning a giveaway, which I'll be running over on my Instagram feed to celebrate. I'm over now, but I hit the 1,000 follower mark. So I am planning a giveaway. I started one, and then I decided I didn't want to do that, so I'm starting another one. I'm making something for the giveaway. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm Miss_Leela. No, sorry, I'm Miss Leela _handmade. I'll put links in the down bar to where you can find me on the web. Yeah, watch out, because I will be having a giveaway soon, but it'll be on Instagram. It won't be through YouTube or this podcast. That's it. All right. I hope you have a lovely making crafty time, and I will see you all again soon.